Welcome back. This is an exciting video to make. Ever since I put out my first Behringer wing video going back 4 years now, you have been asking pretty regularly if and when a rack version of the wing would be available. So obviously I'm really happy to be able to show it to you here today. This is not a critical review. I've only had it for a short time yet, and this unit was sent over by Music Tribe so I could share it with you in this video. So big thanks to them, as always, for making this possible. You can support these videos by joining the channel either here on YouTube or on Patreon, or by just using the affiliate links in the description below. So not only is the wing rack real, it's all black and it's a powerhouse of a machine, even if it does stand a little bit taller than the X32 rack that many of you might be using now. We're going to start around the back on this one because there's a lot to talk about, and I hope if you see anything along the way that I either don't explain fully or that you have more questions about, that you'll go down to the comments here on this video and let me know so I can get you an answer. First of all, we'll start at the very beginning with the power supply, and it's a universal power supply. So if you've got anything between 100 and 240 volts at either 50 or 60 hertz, this box is happy. To the right of that, dual network ports, both for network control and networked audio if you happen to install the Dante card inside of the machine. Next to those, we have a USB Type B port, which provides 48 input and 48 output channels as an audio interface to your computer, and that's what I'm using to record this voiceover you're hearing right now. To the right, we have the familiar set of 3 AES-50 SuperMac ports that you can use to connect to Behringer and Midas stage boxes and interfaces, followed by a single output XLR marked Stage Connect. And if you haven't seen my recent video about Stage Connect, check it out when you're done here. But the short summary is that Stage Connect can do 32 channels of uncompressed audio in or out at ultra low latency, and it's a great way to connect up analog gear as inserts or to use connecting up local line level gear like wireless equipment at your mix position. Moving right from there, 2 channels of AES in and out on XLR, and finally we get to the expansion slot, which like the original wing comes standard with the Wing Live dual SD recording and playback card, but you can also install other cards there like the Dante card that I covered in the past. Moving up from there, we have 24 mic preamps on board with the combo XLR 1/4-inch input connectors that we're used to seeing. I think it's well worth the extra rack space that this unit needs to have 24 mic preamps built in. That's a huge deal. To the left of that, we have 8 XLR outputs, and below those is something really unique. These 1/4-inch jacks are actually amplified headphone outputs. So you can patch stereo in-ear mix buses or matrix sends to these outputs in the console and have 4 amplified stereo outputs ready for musicians to plug into and play. They are also quite powerful amplifiers, and I'm assuming that they figured you'd want to use the headphone extension cable to run these outputs or put them on a little drop snake or something to get to the musicians, so they are capable of driving those types of loads. Below those, we have 4 GPIO general purpose input-output connectors, and that's where you can connect switches or other devices to either trigger actions within the console or vice versa. And next to that, similarly, MIDI ins and outs for other show control fun. This unit is vented on the rear panel and on the side panels as well, and we'll see in just a second around the front what they did behind the touch panel interface. So I looked at this originally and thought for sure that there was a fan in the front here, but it's so quiet. I was really impressed by how quiet they made the fan, but upon opening it up, this one does not have a fan in it. Now, this is just an engineering sample that I've got. This is not a production model, so it'll be really interesting to see if the ones that ship end up having a fan or not. I don't know if it needs it. I don't think so. It seems to run fine, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. On the desktop, this thing is actually fantastic. It's dead quiet, and the way the user panel is laid out, I've really gotten on with well. On the left side, you've got your screen and all of the buttons associated with it and its functions. And on the right-hand side, instead of faders, you've got some knobs and mute solo buttons, as well as a way to bank between your different inputs and outputs. So you're never all that far away from getting to the actual setting or control you need. I really like how they've made the front panel hinge out at the bottom for a better user experience. I also really like how in the closed position, all of the controls are shallow of the depth of the front grips on the sides. So that should hopefully provide some additional protection. In the setup screen, you get a nice granular level of control over all the lighting, including the main LCD, the buttons, the backlight, the meters, the color LED marker, the scribble strip, and the screen contrast. If you're worried about curious fingers adjusting parameters while you're off mixing on your tablet, locking and unlocking any wing is as easy as long pressing the home button. By default, that brings up the logo screen, but they also give you the option to show the meter page when the console is locked, and I prefer that. It's just a more useful view. I'm sure there'll be plenty of great questions about more of the specs in this console, but to give a bigger picture look to anybody that's unfamiliar or new to the Wing console, the basic layout is that at any given time we've got 48 input channels, and those can be either mono or stereo, and we've got 28 output buses, which can again be mono or stereo at your choosing. When we set up the console, we have all of the various I/O to use and choose from, and that includes the AES-50 ports, the expansion slot, the internal network audio card option, the Stage Connect port, the USB ins and outs, and of course the local inputs and outputs built in. So together, those total 374 input and 374 output connections, and we can choose from any of them to populate those mono or stereo processing channels and to route our mono or stereo mix buses to as outputs. When we do this, then from scene to scene or from one show to the next, we can recall the correct combination of inputs and outputs from that larger group and have whatever configuration we need at hand very quickly. Having the unit on the desk like I do, the way you have 4 main outputs, especially with the right-hand set of controls here with the mutes and the level controls, it's very easy to set up 4 different sets of studio monitors and have complete control over those right here from the same panel that you do everything else. It's a really nice thing to be able to have that kind of control and not need additional rack gear and monitor control equipment. Speaking of rack gear, we get all the same processing that has been in the Wing all along. There's tons of really useful stuff in here. You can also insert 2 additional rack effects on every channel, and you can also use this same dialog window here to patch external inserts and things like that. So it's a very, very flexible in not only the amount of options you have for what kind of processing you want to do, but also how you want to set it up and route it, and the order of how things are processed is all very flexible. So there really is something for everyone depending on how you like to work, whether you like to work with traditional mixing board type controls, or if you're more into the plug-in style user interface. They really do have all the options here, and you're not going to find yourself limited for processing, for effects, and things like that. There's all sorts of interesting things to try, as well as some vocal chains and some starter packs for effects that can get you started with some new ideas for combinations of things and how to work things together. So very, very flexible and usable routing and processing on these consoles. Now, at this point, I would assume that there are many of you that would like questions about specific things answered. I can't go into all the details on how this console works in one video. There are people with entire channels.
My name's Drew Brashler.
My name is Guillaume Lortie.
And they do videos week after week showing individual features and how things work on these consoles because they're quite in depth. And if there's anything specific you'd like to see, let me know in the comments. But fundamentally, this is the same as the Wing that's been out for a while now. So anything you've been wondering about as far as like channel level or processing or mixing, I've done a few videos in the past, but there's a handful of other people that have really dug into these consoles quite deep and provided a lot of good material, and it all still applies. I've already seen people speculating and asking whether or not the third-party mixing station app will work for this, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, and I'd be very surprised if the developer of that app doesn't already have a head start on putting it together. For the past few weeks, I've actually had to move the mixer off of my desk for another project, but I've been using the Wing Edit software from Music Tribe to control it while it's below my desk in a rack, and that's been working out fantastic.
We skipped the light, fantastic.
Skip the light, fandango.
So I'm pretty confident saying that all of the same software that's available for the Wing already will work with these newer versions and should be available as soon as the mixers are. So I'm really looking forward to reading your comments about this mixer and these new Wing mixers in general, because everybody's going to be looking at them for different reasons, and it's always fascinating to hear how you're planning to use them and what you're thinking about doing with them. And if you have any questions along those lines, please do leave them down below. In the past, new mixers from Music Tribe have brought a lot of new viewers to the channel, so if this is your first time here, definitely say something in the comments. Let us know what you're up to and what you do, and if you're thinking about one of these, what are you going to use it for? I look forward to talking to all of you. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks again to Music Tribe for sending this one over. I'll see you in the next one.